I am looking to see if we have our other signups in the room. And Jacqueline, I'm going to come to you next, please.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. So tell us about your question.
Well, I'm an attorney and I'm trying to make a transition, which is that adds another factor into the next complicated factor. And I'm looking for work in a limited field. This voting rights and elections, and I have expertise in the area. And I moved here in 2018 from the Western states. I thought I had a job, and the funding didn't come through when I got here. So, what I have found is that I haven't done, marketing analysis or whatever, but that seems to be a very much smaller field and much more difficult to break into. So it's about making connections, and I'm trying to remember. I was looking for the way you framed the issue, so I can sound it more intelligent. Can you tell me again how? I don't have it in front of me.
It's all good. So getting feedback on your ask is how we framed this. So when you ask people for help, because it sounds to me like you know enough to have the perception that this is a limited field, and you are making, in one of the most hated words of the pandemic, a pivot here. You're making a career shift. It's not a total transformation, but it's a career shift in focus. And you know that you need to get to the right people. So how are you framing your ask? You just gave us a great informal outline of the challenge that's facing you. But let's say we meet at a networking event. What would you ask for?
Well, I have my elevator speech ready.
Excellent.
I'm trying to remember if that was the way it was framed or whether it was informational interviewing. I'm trying to remember. But anyway, was that part of it? Asking in informational interviews? That wasn't part of it. Anyway, how to frame my ask. I would tell them that I just moved here a couple of years ago. I just basically say what I just said to you. And it depends on who the person is, obviously. If they're someone who's already doing that kind of work, well, if I knew how to frame the ask, I probably wouldn't be asking you. But
so let me interject here.
Okay.
There's our story, which is super interesting to us. Because as humans, we're fascinating to ourselves. And as 21st century humans in America, oh my gosh, there's a navel here. Could I contemplate it? We get so caught up in our own detail. Then there's what's interesting, relevant, actionable to the person on the other side of the conversation. So in this conversation, I'm going to suggest kindly that they don't care that you just moved here a few years ago.
Okay.
That is not relevant or actionable to what you're asking for. So people have short attention spans. Lead with what's going to connect with them and selfishly bring you value. So I'm seeking to enter and I'm listening to what you said, synthesizing it, and also doing that fabulous non-specific coaching technique of making stuff up. So this is obviously not exactly right here, but I'm seeking to enter the voting rights and advocacy arena. I bring a background of 2 decades as a lawyer specializing in whatever. I'd like to connect with people in these roles. This is what I want. This is my validating experience. This is what I'm asking you for. Every piece of information that we share should be for a reason. There's a wacky line in my bio. Mill reread it for me, shared it with you earlier today. As an expat Brit who grew up in Hong Kong. Why the heck does that matter to anybody? Why would I put it in there? So I put it in there for two reasons. Number one, I would like people to start listening to me right from the beginning. And I know that look. I've been in America for 23 and a bit years. I know that look that says, oh, the accent. Now, it's tremendously flattering and very sweet, but also not relevant. So I put it out there right at the beginning. In my LinkedIn bio, it actually says, yep, still has the accent, so that we don't have to have that conversation. Because if I've got 10 minutes with you, I don't need 5 minutes of it to be about, wow, you're English, because that doesn't serve either of us. I also put in there that grew up in the Far East, because I'm sure that your junior year abroad in London was amazing. I can't share that experience with you because I haven't lived there. So each thing that you put out there should be purposeful. So this is what I want. This is my validating experience. This is how you can help. And you're absolutely right that each circumstance is different. But if you have those core beats, then you can adapt and shape. Does that help you, Jacqueline?
Yes, ma'am. It certainly does. I'm
Do you
glad
want to
that
give it another
2018
try?
Yeah. Do I want to give it another try? Is that what you said? Oh, well, let's see. I'm trying to remember whether it so depends on the context. I mean, because
let me give you a context.
Okay, please.
The context is here. We can see a whole bunch of names, but we don't know who these people are. We don't know if maybe there's the absolute guru of hiring in your sweet spot who chose to sit in on 40 Plus at Greater Washington this morning. We don't know if there's someone who's best friends with that guru. But if we were going around the houses and you were doing your introduction to this group of diverse, seasoned job seekers, and you might, long shot, but you might get a recruitment conversation, you could well get a referral conversation out of this. What would you share with the group?
I'm dedicated and passionate about our democracy and voting rights and elections and making a change. And I bring litigation skills, organizational skills, team leadership skills. I've been a lawyer for a long. I've been a lawyer a long time. I'm very experienced, in many areas, and I also have done a great deal of pro bono work in voting in elections. I don't know if I should list off some of the election protection, and in the last election, I was very involved in many different aspects and many different projects of voting in elections, and I really want to help. Well, now I'm repeating myself, so
You're doing well.
Okay,
You're doing
right.
well.
Yeah, and I am seeking to connect with people who know more about to help me find which organizations to connect with people who are in this field and can tell me more about where I might look and where I could best apply my skills, where I'd be make the biggest contribution. So
I love that. So, couple of practical suggestions here. As I've already shared, we all need to practice. So I'm a coach. I worked in marketing for 20 years. I lead people through both structured curriculum training and coaching. And I get tongue-tied with my elevator pitch because we get in our head and we get lost there. So practice with your friends, practice with your significant other, practice on the dog. Dogs can be fascinated by elevator pitches given the right tone of voice. Write it out. Come up with your own talking points, just as you would for a client if you were prepping them for litigation. Figure out what your grab bag of points is and then which ones you are going to pluck out for this conversation. Be clear on your selection of asks. And Jacqueline, given the field that you're looking at, I want to touch on something here that may be relevant to quite a few people on the call about jargon and language. So you may have noticed we live in Washington. Half the people love your guy, half the people hate your guy, half the people love the other guy, half the people hate the other guy. There's code language. I'm not going to say be vanilla. If you are something to everyone, you can also be nothing to anyone. But be intentional and careful about your language. I will frequently use the line in my bio, Joanna brings a commitment to social justice to her work. There are people who will not hire me because of that line. There are people who specifically will hire me because of that line. I'm saying something very specific. I choose to show up wearing a cross every meeting that I'm in. At the beginning of Zoom, no one noticed it in real life because it's a tiny bit of jewelry. At the beginning of Zoom, suddenly it's like, wow, your neck is bigger than life here. And that started to feel like a choice. So with everything you say, you're making a choice. You should also think, all of us should think about insider baseball and acronyms and jargon. So if you're speaking to a group who speak your language, we can prove credibility through jargon. If you're speaking to a group that does not speak your language, you can baffle people or exclude them with jargon. If I am speaking to a group of educators, I will talk about learning design, curriculum, and pedagogy. If I am speaking to a group of business professionals, I will talk about structured and unstructured learning because most people can figure out what that is. But you bring people in and you close people out, and you can do that very intentionally with the language that you use in your ask.